The world has raised its voice in support of the people and government of Venezuela in rejection of the new operations of the U.S. executive. China and Brazil reaffirmed their willingness to set an example of unity and self-reliance among countries in the Global South. And death toll from genocidal operations in Palestine has reached 61,499 since October 7, 2023. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The world has raised its voice in support of the people and government of Venezuela and rejects the new aggressions of the U.S. executive. In the South American region, governments and social movements from Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic, as well as local authorities and Venezuelan movements expressed their support for the constitutional president of the Bolivarian nation, Nicolás Maduro, after the declarations of the United States Attorney General, Pamela Bondi. Central America also expressed its support from El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. They rejected the instrumentalization of the U.S. legal system against a free and sovereign nation. For the North, governments and grassroots organizations in Mexico and the United States supported the Venezuelan head of state and rejected the false accusations against him. The rejection of the lawfare attempt against Venezuela and its authorities echoed in parallel in Europe, Asia, and Africa, with France, Iran, and Egypt sending strong support to the Bolivarian nation. And in this context, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed his gratitude for the support received from sovereign peoples around the world. The Venezuelan President expressed his gratitude for the mobilization of the military and popular forces and for the support of society in general in defense of peace and sovereignty at this crucial time for the country. Furthermore, the head of state denounced the United States' attempts to impose violent hegemony on the world's emerging economies. And in Venezuela, Foreign Minister Ivan Hill met with the diplomatic corps accredited in the country in order to put into proper perspective the latest U.S. threats against Venezuela. The Venezuelan Foreign Minister emphasized that since March 2015, the Venezuelan state has been the victim of all forms of attack, which began with former President Obama's executive order declaring Venezuela an unusual and extraordinary threat. Hill added that in the last 10 years, Venezuela has experienced inhumane attacks against its sovereignty, sabotage of the oil industry, attacks on the production of goods and services, on the national currency, and all forms of economic assault. And the body of the Colombian presidential hopeful and Senator Miguel Uribe Turbay lies in state at the elliptical hall of the Colombian Congress in Bogota. After being shot 3 times at a campaign rally on June 7, 2025, Uribe underwent multiple surgeries but succumbed to a fatal brain hemorrhage on August 11, 2025. Following his death, his body was transferred from the hospital and forensic services to the Congress, where it will remain in a public viewing chamber through the night, with an open opportunity for the public and lawmakers to pay respects before his funeral scheduled for August 13th. His wife, family members, and fellow politicians gathered at Congress to honor his memory. And the 14-year-old accused of Uribe Turbay's murder, which accepted the charges during a private hearing on August 5th, will be sentenced on August 27th by a judge specializing in children and adolescents. The prosecutor's office will request that the charge be changed from attempted murder to actual murder, which could lead to a sentence of up to 8 years in a center for young offenders. The crime, perpetrated at a campaign event in June, has sparked political and social shock in Colombia. And the Colombian Attorney General's office requested the Bogota Superior Court to overturn the 12-year house arrest sentence against former President Álvaro Uribe, alleging missteps in the assessment of evidence. The Attorney General's office maintains that it is not proven that Uribe or the lawyer Diego Cadena to offer incentives to prisoners in 2018 to clear him of the creation of a paramilitary group. In addition, it questions the validity of the telephone recordings used as evidence. The case, considered one of the most important in judicial history of the country, will now be reviewed by 3 judges from the criminal chamber who must decide whether to confirm, modify, or overturn the sentence. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. You'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. China and Brazil reaffirmed their willingness to set an example of unity and self-reliance among countries in the Global South. Chinese President Xi Jinping urged countries in the Global South to jointly safeguard international equity and justice and to protect the legitimate rights and interests of developing countries. During a phone call, Brazilian President Lula da Silva and his counterpart President Xi declared that they would jointly build a more just and sustainable planet. Brazilian President affirmed his willingness to strengthen communication and coordination with China on the multilateral mechanisms such as BRICS, opposing Washington's unilateral aggressive actions. And in Argentina, the governor of the province of Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, announced on Monday the launching of the Completar plan, which seeks to resume the construction of thousands of houses halted by the government of President Javier Milei. Let's recall that since the change of national management, the building of more than 16,000 homes remains paralyzed, leaving them exposed to abandonment, many of them with significant construction progress. A scenario that has been criticized by the Minister of Habitat of Buenos Aires, Silvina Batakis, who pointed out that in the middle of an ongoing housing crisis, it is cruel to forget these projects. The announcement comes amid controversy over the state of some developments of the government program Procrear and the delivery of housing to police officials by the Minister of Security, Patricia Bullrich. And in Chile, workers of the public transport system denounced bad conditions and miserable wages and threatened a strike that could paralyze part of the public transport system in Santiago de Chile this week if no agreement is reached with the RPU company.
Son las 4 de la mañana.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. A hard day begins. And it is not 1, it will be 2, because the salary is simply not enough.
To earn money, it's 16 hours a day working. Many workers do 12 hours, and then go to another job, and continue doing hours. There are workers who come in at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock a.m., and work until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They eat quickly, go to other company and work until 11 p.m. Do you think we will be able to provide a good service that way?
Difícil, y no solo para ellos, sino
Difficult, and not only for them, but also for the thousands of users of public transportation, which in the country, of course, is also private.
Here they get their money from the state. That's why we workers and passengers don't have to fight. We are passengers too. We also take the bus. So excuse me, but we also do all this to provide a good service.
son las y los trabajadores del sindicato.
They are the workers of the Elias Lafford Union, which brings together urban bus workers from the Rebu Santiago company's mobility network with close to 4,000 workers.
Trabajadores como esta, distintas empresas.
Like this one, different companies win state tenders, and although they are different, they say, the conditions of the workers are all similar.
The Ministry of Transportation endorsed that the company pays us unworthy salaries, that we have unworthy conditions, where workers have died en route.
Jornadas extenuantes, solo 30 minutos para
The days are exhausting, only 30 minutes for lunch, and as long as the trip has reached one of the terminals, where there is not always a bathroom.
Most of the drivers end up getting sick. They have to walk around with a wimple. With a change of clothes they have improved with the little handkerchief that the women put on. Of course there are illnesses.
De concretarse la huelga,
If the strike goes ahead, 8 districts of the Chilean capital will see transportation paralyzed on routes that connect Santiago from one end to the other, such as Parajul, near the airport, with Vitacura, in the eastern zone.
Voting for the strike means that we have 5 more days to negotiate with the company, and we want to take advantage of those 5 days too. We want the company to make an offer that it has to make, which is obligatory. So let's not be afraid and let's vote for the strike.
Pero no ha sido fácil la convocatoria a las
But the call
malas
has not been easy. To the poor conditions, they accuse persecution. The company agreed to negotiate before the possible strike, which the union will vote on electronically, exercising a valid right, they insist.
insisten.
Porque hoy la empresa no tiene con sueldos mínimos.
Today the company has us with minimum wages, with unworthy wages. That is why we are fighting for fair wages, for fair conditions, for working hours in which we can share with our family. Today the company is denying that right.
Familia, hoy la empresa niega ese derecho.
Un modelo de licitación y negocio que
A bidding and business model that has been debated for decades in Chile. Can transportation be called public when it is actually private?
en realidad es privado. Carolina Sandoval y Paola Dragnik, Telesur, Chile.
In Mexico, the Secretariat for Integrated Risk Management and Civil Protection issued a double alert following steady rainfall in the capital city over the past 72 hours. Mexico City faces an unprecedented crisis due to heavy rains that have broken historical records. The storms have triggered flooding in several streets and avenues, leading to the collapse of public and vehicle transportation. Likewise, operations at the city's international airport have been halted, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. Well, authorities registered 84.5 millimeters of accumulated rain, overcoming the 1952 record of 67 millimeters. The local government's water management secretary, Jose Mario Esparza, warned that the city is put halfway into the rainy season. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date with the world's most recent events. Final break, don't go away. Welcome back. Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip have resulted in a Palestinian death toll of 61,499 and 153,575 injured since October 7, 2023, with 69 deaths and 362 injuries reported in the latest 24-hour period. Meanwhile, Israeli military operations in Jenin refugee camp and the city in the West Bank have been ongoing for over 203 days, causing extensive displacement and destruction. According to UN and humanitarian sources, nearly all of the approximately 20,000 residents of the Jenin refugee camp have been displaced, with estimates ranging around 18,000 to more than 21,000 people forced to leave their homes due to continued military actions. Over 600 homes have been destroyed, along with severe damage to infrastructure, including roads, water, sewage, and telecommunications. And on Monday, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum expressed her support for the proposal to grant asylum to Palestinian children orphaned by the genocide in Gaza. The president described the initiative as positive and recalled that Mexico has maintained throughout its history an open-door policy for those seeking refuge. To assess the viability of this measure, she instructed the Secretary of the Interior, Rosa Isela Rodriguez, and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs to review all the legal, logistical, and humanitarian aspects that would be involved in receiving and caring for these children. And Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian warned Caucasus countries about the risk of the United States using the new transport corridor in the region as a tool to impose its hegemonic interests under the guise of promoting peace or boosting the economy. In a telephone conversation with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, the Iranian leader emphasized that the project must guarantee Armenia's sovereignty and exclude any foreign military presence. Pezeshkian reiterated that Iran, as a harbor of peace and stability, supports any genuine agreement that promotes cooperation among regional countries, but opposes any maneuver that alters borders or serves to isolate Iran and Russia, in a context marked by the recent peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan conciliated by Washington. And in Peru, outrage grows following journalist and migrant Ricardo Quintana's case, currently detained in the Alligator Alcatraz prison in Florida. On the Cuarto Poder program, Quintana reported that he lives in inhumane conditions, crowded in with dozens of people, fed frozen food and subjected to long hours, handcuffed and chained to the floor. The journalist, who arrived in the United States in 2021 seeking political asylum, claims that he never committed any crimes and that his only offense was selling ceviche without a permit. His testimony has sparked an intense debate about the mistreatment of migrants in the United States. And in Haiti, the health situation in the regions of Port-au-Prince and Léogâne has reached a critical point, affecting thousands of people seeking refuge from armed violence. A recent study by Haiti's medical organization and the Final Point movement revealed that 98% of residents suffer from scabies and 85% of children between the ages of 1 and 6 suffer from dysentery, a form of intestinal infection due to polluted water. In addition, 80% of these children are affected by malnutrition. The health crisis is also worsening with cholera. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and the World Health Organization detected 34 new cases in recent weeks. The situation underlines the urgent need for clean water and sanitation for thousands of families surviving in precarious conditions. And in Panama, the mayor's office of the capital will this month evict informal vendors stationed at metro stations, delivering another blow to those who live on a daily basis and aggravating the subsistence crisis in the country. From Panama City, our colleague Reka Shandiramani with the details.
Negrita cumple 15 años como buhonera.
Negrita is 15 years old as an informal vendor, but her story is not one of celebration. At the age of 12, she took to the streets to survive. And today, from her modest stall of natural herbs in the 5 de Mayo Square in the heart of the canal capital, she supports her young children. However, her livelihood hangs in the balance just a few steps away, in the subway station that bears the same name as the plaza. The mayor's office is moving forward with an eviction that will leave the future of at least 50 families who make a living from street vending in the surrounding area up in the air.
I say that they should not remove people who have these positions like me. Because you are not here because you want to be. And this is our daily sustenance. If we had a job, we wouldn't be here. We are clear that this part belongs to the train, and that they have to have some, as I said, some parameters so that if the train has an emergency, God forbid, they have to have the exit and evacuate the people. But if you focus on the front, we have enough space so that the ambulances can enter and exit.
The mayor's office has offered to relocate them to a building adjacent to the station, but, according to the vendors, this building does not meet the minimum conditions for them to continue their activity.
We want another dialogue, because after we found out, the papers are not up to date. The National Civil Protection System and the fire department are not giving permission for that building, but they don't care. The building is here in front of the subway. It's not even painted. It has no parameters for a human being.
The Authority of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises estimates that more than 700,000 Panamanians live from informal commerce in the country. These evictions could aggravate the situation of these families if replicated in other parts of the capital.
How are informal vendors born? How is the informal economy born? From unemployment, from the lack of attention, the lack of vacancies there, and that may arise. If they evict us from here, what do you expect? I am going to be evicted from where I live, right? Because I won't have enough to pay my rent. I want them to put us in a good place if they don't want us here, right? I asked the mayor to touch his heart, that those 8 months they want to give us to relocate us later, those 8 months, what are we going to do with our bellies? How are we going to eat? How are we going to survive? Let's hope that this government will help informal vendors, and not just remove them just like that. If they are going to remove them, they should have something specific to put them in.
Vendedor informal, cada persona que tiene su puesto tiene su familia y entonces
One is working honestly. If one has to pay taxes, one pays them. Let them say, because what will they be left with?
entonces ¿en qué van a quedar? ¿En robar?
En Panamá, los boneros representan el 12% de
In
la
Panama,
fuerza laboral.
informal vendors represent 12% of the labor force, according to official figures. 6 out of 10 are women, many of them heads of household, and 95% lack social security. Although this informal trade is vital for thousands of families, the reordering operations have affected at least 8,000 households between 2020 and 2024, according to reports from the Ombudsman's Office.
Según reportes de la Defensoría del Pueblo. Reca Chandiramani, Telesur, Ciudad de Panamá.
This we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Roberto Matos. Thank you for watching.